People, what's a shameful secret about your intimate history that could ruin you if it came out? Story 1. My wife and I are middle-aged and live together with her 21-year-old daughter, my stepdaughter, from her previous relationship. Over the past 3 years, our marriage has become increasingly boring with no intimacy at all, and I've relied mostly on corn for relief. While we still love each other, we've grown physically distant. We've discussed it a few times, but we haven't been truly intimate in a long while, and I'm unsure of the deeper reasons behind it. This is hard to confess to. For the last 2 months, I have become nearly obsessed with seeing my stepdaughter Bear. 3 nights ago, my wife came home exhausted from work and fell asleep on the bed, my stepdaughter being in her bedroom. Within half an hour, she went to the bathroom where I heard the shower running. Prior to this, I had examined the bathroom door and found that it was slightly warped at the top and offered a view into the bathroom directly into the shower area. I gave her about 2 minutes and stood on a chair outside the bathroom door, being as silent as I could, and there she was, Bear in the shower. Her body slim, her dark hair and eyes contrasting against her pale skin. Her jugs were perfect and my eyes were always drawn back to the natural dark hair at the center. It was incredibly exciting. I was nervous as hell, but I could not look away. Eventually my nerves got the better of me, and I stood down. But I was back within 2 minutes after I found my wife still fast asleep. I watched her again for 2 or 3 minutes until she was done. Her body entranced me as I tried to commit her to memory. Throughout the shower, face was entirely neutral and blank. She didn't suspect a single thing. When she turned the shower off, I moved away quickly and quietly and went to our other bathroom where I soloed myself quickly. Afterwards, the PNC thought caught hold of me, like never before. I knew what I was doing. It was no accident. I felt such regret and such overwhelming guilt. But my lust was too much. Within an hour, I soloed again, playing the scene over and over in my head again. When I went to bed, I could barely sleep from my excitement. I have betrayed them both. In silence and without witnesses, I have broken the sanctity and safety of my home. Through a truly basic lust, I feel towards a young woman who has entirely placed her trust in me for providing a safe place to live. She suspects nothing. My wife suspects nothing, but I have intruded upon her, and I will probably do so again. I'm a foul person. Before we continue, do us a quick favor. Smash that like button and subscribe to support our channel. Story 2. I put a hidden camera in our bedroom to catch my wife cheating. Instead of confronting her, I did something way worse. My wife and I are both in our early 30s. We've been together for 10 years and married for 6. Our relationship has always been solid. We get along well, rarely argue, and up until about 2 years ago, we had a fulfilling, intimate life. Around that time, my wife began to lose interest. I made efforts to reconnect and rekindle that part of our relationship, but she eventually started taking medication that, according to her, significantly lowered her libido. Since then, our physical intimacy has become increasingly infrequent, about once every couple of months, and often only after I express how much I miss that connection. At the same time, she began going to the gym regularly and got into the best shape she's ever been in. I've also been working on my health, though my demanding commute and long hours limit my schedule. She prefers going during the day when I'm at work. About a year ago, I started getting the feeling that something wasn't right. There were small things, items on my nightstand slightly out of place, moments that didn't add up. I never found anything definitive, but the feeling lingered. Eventually, my anxiety got the best of me, and I installed a hidden camera in our bedroom. Something I now question, even if at the time I felt desperate for clarity. For the first couple of days, there was nothing unusual. But on the third day, I watched in disbelief as my wife, my beautiful wife, rushed into our bedroom with a fit-looking man. They were already onto each other, still in their gym clothes. I felt frozen, horrified, furious, crushed. I didn't know what to think or feel. I was completely overwhelmed. I was so close to confronting her that day, but I didn't. I couldn't. Maybe it was fear, or shame, or just pure shock. Instead, I found myself stuck, replaying the footage over and over, trying to make sense of it. Something in me shifted, and I didn't quite know how to process what I had just seen. I ended up soloing myself while watching. I have never had any kind of liking for spectator games, or interest in swapping at all. I can't explain it, but since that day, for almost a year now, I've kept my mouth shut and left the camera hidden. My wife and her lover have gotten braver over time. They wait until I leave the house to commute to work and then spend anywhere from 1 to up to 3 hours together in our bedroom. 3 to sometimes 5 days a week. It has been a complete dead bedroom for me, going on 8 months now. She still lies and says her meds killed her interest. I don't even bother with corn anymore. I exclusively watch the videos. Neither of them know I record. I know it's messed up, but I can't seem to make myself stop. Story 3. She's my first cousin, and we have been very close ever since we were babies. I see her almost every other day, because we live about a mile apart. I know a few secrets about her, and she knows a few secrets about me, except this one. We're the oldest in our families, and have always had a brother-sister relationship, and I would never try to destroy that. A few weeks ago, she asked me to babysit her kids so that she could go run some errands. As usual, I said yes. When she left, I noticed that she left her iPad on the couch. I knew the passcode to it since her kid used it often, so I figured that it wouldn't be a problem if I used it to watch a little YouTube. After a few minutes of being bored, I noticed the Google Photos app on there. A few weeks prior, I suggested she download Google Photos on her iPad so that she can recover some photos she thought she had lost from her previous Android phone. It worked, and she recovered her photos since Android automatically backs them up anyway. My curiosity got the best of me, and I opened the app, and right in the trash bin were several photos of her, posing in provocative way. I guess she didn't know that when you delete photos on Google Photos, they're not actually deleted until you clear them from the trash. I love my cousin, but I've never denied how stunningly beautiful she is. So, I very quickly restored the photos, opened up Safari in private mode, and uploaded them to my Dropbox for later solo sessions. I've been looking up unconventional corn while having the pictures open on the side, and it's making the experience feel much better. I've always known that she took photos, but it wasn't until recently that I decided to look for them. I've known my cousin for 25 years, and I've never willingly betrayed her trust until this moment. I feel a massive amount of guilt over this. Story 4. I showed my boss a good time for my current job. I have a long-term boyfriend, and I had the best bang with my boss than with all of the times with my boyfriend. I live in a country where this kind of behavior, unfortunately, isn't all that uncommon. I went to a job interview I never expected to be considered for. I had no experience in the field and didn't meet the formal qualifications. So when I got called in, I was honestly surprised. But the moment I stepped into the interview, something felt off. The boss, a man probably in his late 30s, and admittedly not bad looking, was acting weird. A little too familiar. He was touchy in a subtle but uncomfortable way. Nothing blatant, but enough to set off internal alarms. I was confused at first. Usually it's the sleazy or obviously desperate types who pull this kind of thing. But this guy didn't fit that mold. Then he asked me if I really wanted the job and what I'd be willing to do for it. It took me a second to process what he was implying. I hesitated, stumbled over my words, trying to understand what exactly he meant. When I said I wasn't sure what he was getting at, he laughed and said, "Oh, come on." That's when it hit me. I told him I didn't think this job was right for me. Got up and left. Later, he called me twice. Then came the text. He apologized, said he was sorry for being creepy. Promised that if I came back, we could talk it through. Claimed I wouldn't even have to work in the same building as him. Said I wouldn't have to see him if I didn't want to. I reread the message more than once. I started thinking about the pay, and part of me wondered, maybe I overreacted. Maybe he was just being flirty. Maybe I wouldn't actually have to do anything. Maybe. When I went back, he was still flirting, this time more openly. He told me he'd seen my application and then looked me up on Facebook. He said something about me being a white girl and how he'd always wanted to be with one. The way he said it made me uncomfortable, but I didn't really know how to respond. Then he started talking about the pay. It was even higher than I had expected, and I was honestly caught off guard. He asked if I wanted the job, and I said yes, mainly because I needed it. That's when he stood up, walked over to me, and kissed me hard. I was stunned. I hadn't agreed to that. I pulled away, but he kept going, saying things like, "I really want to work with you, and it'd be a shame if you didn't get the job." That's when it clicked. To him, saying yes to the job meant saying yes to him. After some pressure and a lot of internal conflict, I gave in. I didn't want to, but I felt like I didn't really have a choice. I was behind on bills, drowning in debt, and owed money to my sister. I needed this job, and he promised he wouldn't even be working in the same building. So I told myself, screw it. That isn't the part I feel most guilty about, not the fact that I slept with him. It was the fact that it was probably the best bang I've had in years. We literally did it in his office, on his couch near where we had the interview. It was ridiculously good. He was ridiculously good, and he was true to his word. I barely even saw him after that. It's been 3 months, and I am finally making enough money in my life to actually live. I just feel terrible about that one day with him on the couch. My boyfriend is excited we finally have enough money to not be in poverty, but I have to wonder how excited he would be if he knew what I did for that. Story 5. So this is my confession. I'm a follower. I'm only recently just realizing this and realizing how creepy some of my actions have been, and I'm really ashamed and angry at myself. I think I have what you would call an attachment disorder. I generally fall in love with people like my professors or rock stars I have never met and have elaborate fantasies of what they could add to my life. I get so enthused about people, and I pretty much let that be known, but it happens in a way that isn't much invited. If it's someone I know, I'll see if I can go places where I might run into them. I take up hobbies that I think they'll be into on the off chance that it'll turn them on to me. I leave very appreciative comments on people's fan pages on Facebook, but I guess they're a little overzealous, especially to people who don't know me. I put people on a pedestal, I guess because I really want someone to believe it. The thing is that I am only recently in my life realizing how ridiculous this looks from the other side. I thought being something like this was when you followed someone, looked into their windows at night, and broke into their apartment to steal their dirty inners and stuff. I'd imagine the things I do to be cute and affectionate and flattering, but I'm getting the hint now that they're actually kind of creepy. Jeez, I didn't ever want to be a psycho creeper, mental disorder of a romantic, but honest to God, the feelings of excitement I feel are sometimes the only things that get me out of bed. Some of these people have affected my life in such profound ways that I really just want to be a super fan and express how much they have meant to me. I realize I can do that by leaving them the F alone, but it does feel incredibly backwards and repressive to my brain. I'm super embarrassed and I want to be different, but I'm not sure exactly how to change my brain. This isn't like being in school where I knew that all I had to do was pay attention to my teacher, read the assigned chapter, and study my flashcards before the test. I feel I am lost in the middle of nowhere without a roadmap, and my guesses at how to get out of here may only make me worse. My whack tendencies just seem normal to me because I was brought up by a borderline mother and an addicted father who taught me so many maladaptive ways of getting through life. So to anyone out there who has ever been pestered by a weird obsessive admirer who wasn't very comfortable with themselves and didn't even know what it means to be such, I'm sorry and I hope you'll forgive us. Story 6. The last time I wrote, it was about my son and his then crush. Quick side note, they're not together anymore, but he has a new girlfriend now and I absolutely adore her. But back to the real reason we're here. So remember Trevor? And I'm sure you haven't forgotten those messages he sent me. Yeah, the pics. After that little incident and some back and forth messages from him just trying to make conversation, he eventually went pretty quiet. I didn't think much of it. It's not like I had any plans to meet up with him or take things further. But of course, that silence didn't last too long. I was lying in bed, pretty sure it was a Thursday night. I was just scrolling through my messages when Trevor's name popped up on my social media. I hesitated to open it at first, waiting about 30 minutes or so just to make sure I didn't look too eager. When I finally opened it, I immediately saw it was a long message. It started with him saying how much he enjoyed talking to me online, followed by a comment about how lucky my son was to have such a hot mom. Then he mentioned how caring and loving I was. I'll admit it was flattering, especially since I don't think of myself as a hot mom at all. I'm overweight, I don't consider myself pretty, and I'm definitely not the size 2 perfect soccer mom I see around. Plus, I've seen Trevor's girlfriend. She's thin, beautiful, without makeup, and has this perfect look that honestly reminds me of what I looked like before becoming a mom. I kept reading. He then went on to say that he hoped he wasn't overstepping his boundaries again, but that he was leaving for college soon and wouldn't be back until Christmas break. He asked, almost begged, if he could see me before he left, just to say goodbye. He said he sometimes saw me as a mother figure and that it felt right to say goodbye in person. I paused. I closed the message and didn't reply. I am still in the same position I was before I opened that message. By that point, the screen had gone black, and I was staring at pretty much my own reflection. I thought to myself, this kid just wants to come over and bang me. He is using this as an excuse to let me invite him over. That's all he wants. That has to be it. He wants to bang me, right? Just as soon as I finished that thought, reality hit me. Please, like I'm that sexy that Trevor would be willing to risk losing my son as a friend and cheat on his gorgeous girlfriend with me. Yeah, right. I don't even have a boyfriend, so why would someone like him want me? I shake it off, unlock my phone, open the chat and text him. Okay, you can come by tomorrow. He replies with a simple, okay, and I push the whole thing out of my mind. Fast forward to Friday, and I'm going through my usual routine, doing chores, keeping busy. My son calls me just to check in, see how I'm doing. Nothing unusual. By 6 p.m., I'm feeling a bit bored, so I head over to visit my mom to make some small talk and have dinner. Right as I'm pulling into the driveway, I get a message from Trevor asking if he can come by to say goodbye. I tell him I'm at my mom's, but will let him know when I'm free. He just responds with okay. I walk into my mom's house, and we start chatting about the day. She's telling me stuff about work, but I can't focus. I'm trying to think of an excuse to leave. After all, I just got here, so why would I leave so soon? I'm pacing back and forth, trying to figure out a reason when my phone suddenly rings. It's my friend calling to gossip. We talk for a minute, and then I hang up, telling my mom that my friend needs me to drop something off, and that I'll be right back. She doesn't question it, and I head out. As I'm walking to the car, I'm wondering why I'm even trying to find a reason to go see Trevor. It's just to say goodbye, right? No big deal. But I guess I feel a little flattered that he'd want to see me, even if it's not about anything sexual anymore. I pull out of the driveway and dial Trevor's number. He answers, and I tell him I'll be home soon, and he can stop by. He responds with another okay. I get to my house and go inside. It's quiet, and the sun's already starting to set, so the house feels a little darker than usual. My kitchen has a perfect view of the street, so I stand there, looking for his car to come down the road. 5 minutes pass. Nothing. Another 5 and still nothing. So I sit on the sofa and message him saying I'll need to leave soon because I can't hang around too long. He responds with, I'm outside. I get up, go to the door and open it. I see him walking down the driveway, so I kind of sneak behind the door, waiting for him to pass me and head into the living room. I close the door behind him. He comments on how pretty my dress is. It's a pink sundress that I've worn around him before. I just say thank you. I ask when he's leaving, and he says next week, but he'll be busy packing and getting everything ready. At this point, the conversation feels pretty casual. I tell him I have to leave because my mom is waiting for me. He says okay. He puts his arm around me, and I do the same, wrapping my arms around his waist, while his rest around my shoulders. I give him the friend pat 3 times, and tell him to take care. I'm ready to let go, but he's still holding on a little too tight. I've never hugged him like this before. I can feel his heart beating faster than I expected, almost like he'd just run a marathon. We stood there, both quiet for what felt like an eternity, but was probably only a couple of seconds. I give him the friend pat again, and then I move my left arm to his waist, gently guiding him back so we can both step away. He takes a step back, but then leans in, and I feel a soft touch on my cheek. I close my eyes, but quickly open them, saying, how could I be enjoying something so simple, especially when he had only come by to say goodbye? His lips were gentle, but I quickly remind myself of the situation. I don't feel his body against mine anymore, but I feel his hands slowly move up my arm to my shoulder and then to my neck. As he pulls away, I sense his breath near my ear. Without thinking, I instinctively pull back, but then I feel a gentle pressure on the back of my neck as he pulls me in closer. One thing led to another, and we ended up having the best time of our lives. Afterwards, when we were done, he sits down on the bed, quietly beginning to put my clothes on. I look at him and say, I have to leave, so that means you do too. He simply nods and says, okay. I grab a towel from the closet and quickly clean up, but there's a heavy silence between us. We don't say much until we're both outside, and I look at him saying, be safe and behave yourself. He laughs and I look down, feeling a mixture of emotion. He replies with a final, okay. I get into my car, and the reality of everything hits me. I let out a deep breath. Oh well, that happened, I tell myself, trying to make sense of the moment. Story 7. There was a time in my life when I was feeling immense depression. It was so bad, I essentially became a mute. I didn't speak to anyone in over a year. It was a period of complete numbness. I was pulled out of that rut by a very popular girl who decided to put me under her wing. She showed kindness, understanding, and patience. She would always ask me about the things I loved doing and showed genuine interest. She would make sure that I was always welcome whenever I was invited to a social gathering of my schoolmates and help me make many new friends. She was older than me, so she graduated high school earlier. When she did, I started to hang out in her neighborhood, would walk around her house, waiting for her to come out, waiting to walk together with her to a bus station or a convenience store, and talk to her about anything. I don't know what I was thinking at that point. Probably something along the lines of the time when I will never be able to see her again is coming soon. Better delay it as long as I possibly can. I managed to catch her once, but I attempted it several more times with no results. Only recently I realized that I became an unwanted follower. Back then I was puzzled by the fact that the friends I gained with her help were so quickly lost, and none of them told me the reason, not even a fake one. But now I understand. She came to regret having invested so much energy into a person who would eventually become a source of immense anxiety to her, and told all those people that I am a scary freak, which I admittedly was. At times I believed that my love was purely platonic, because when I would have dreams or daydreams about her, they never involved anything intimate. I never expressed a desire to become more than friends, never flirted, never implied anything romantic to her. I have never even soloed to the thoughts of her. You may not believe it, but it's true. Maybe that indicates that I didn't really love her, but that's irrelevant, because there is no excuse for what I did. Story 8. I'm struggling mentally right now. I'm a guy in my early 20s, currently in a long-term stable relationship. I live with my girlfriend, let's call her Kay, and her parents. We've been together for almost 5 years, but the truth is, I've had lingering feelings for my best friend. We'll call her Marie. Even before I started dating Kay, Marie and I have been close since high school. As far as I can tell, with a pretty high degree of certainty, she's never had romantic feelings for me. Back then, I was emotionally needy and often caught up in unrequited crushes. But Marie stood out because we genuinely became close friends. We started hanging out outside of school, originally through a mutual friend, but we built our own connection. I still remember how, during senior year, we used to walk together to the library after school and spend time there. Those moments meant a lot to me. Looking back, I was definitely friend-zoned and hard. I don't hold that against her, but it still hurt. At the time, I was also dealing with depression, which probably didn't help my case. Eventually, I met Kay and began dating her. That relationship helped me regain some confidence and emotional stability. The truth is, I never really got over Marie. Even after I started dating Kay, Marie and I still spent time together, sometimes just the two of us. Early on in my relationship with Kay, Marie and I had a few nights where we stayed up talking, hanging out, just being close. Nothing ever crossed a physical line, though I admittedly wished it had at the time. Still, there was a comfort in those moments. I remember one night we went to a park in the middle of the night and just lay in the grass talking. It was peaceful. As my relationship with Kay deepened and life started moving forward, my connection with Marie faded a bit. We didn't hang out as much, and she eventually got a boyfriend of her own. He seems like a good guy, kind, a little absent-minded maybe, but he treats her well. In the past year or two, though, Marie and I became close again. We bonded over some old wounds, mostly involving a mutual ex-friend, let's call her Dee. Dee had been emotionally manipulative to Marie back in high school, and at one point Marie created a fake profile online to mess with her. For a while, I was the only person she told about it. Eventually, she told her boyfriend too. Looking back, I realized that part of me got caught up in the drama of it all. I encouraged her to take things further than she probably should have, and I regret that now. I've always struggled with being a bit obsessive. That probably pushed people away in high school. The situation with Dee brought out some of those old habits in both of us. Still, Marie never pushed me away for it. If anything, it made me feel like I finally had someone who accepted all the parts of me, even the darker ones. We got reckless together sometimes, and even though I knew it wasn't right, a part of me felt alive in that chaos. There was a bond there that felt raw and real. Of course I was tempted to snoop. We had a history back when we were digging through Dee's email, and even looking into other people's accounts. Marie was right there with me. Given that, she'd have to be naive to think I wouldn't be curious about her too. Or maybe she trusted me, and if that's the case, then I crossed a line. Which makes me feel awful. Seriously, what kind of person does that make me? It started with her old photo bucket account. One of our mutual friends used to tease her about having some racy photos saved there. Naturally, my curiosity got the better of me. At some point in the past, she had shared her password with me, so yeah, I looked. Maybe she knew I would. What I found were a few pictures of her. Nothing explicit, just her covering her chest with her hands. Still, part of me believed there had to be more. And that thought stuck with me in a way I wish it hadn't. Months went by, and we were all at a party at another friend's house. Everyone got drunk. Marie and her boyfriend passed out in one of the bedrooms. I noticed his cell phone in the living room and realized it was an opportunity. I pocketed it when no one was looking and went to the bathroom. Sure enough, pictures were there, and holy crap, they were the real deal. 2 fully bare shots of her and 1 close-up shot. At this point, the line was crossed completely. There was no going back now. I became obsessed, more so than before. The next party at that same friend's house, I got Marie's phone instead. There was nothing in the gallery, but I found what I wanted in her email. The same ones her boyfriend had, but better quality. But I couldn't stop. So before we went to a convention with our friends, I put a keylogger on my laptop. I was hoping she would want to use it to get on Facebook so I could have her password to her email and everything, and it worked. I also put a keylogger on the laptop of another girl in our room while I was in the room alone. I felt like a spy. It was just so captivating, watching people, learning everything about them, all their hidden truths. Marie understood that thrill too. We did something similar with Dee, and Marie was all in. We'd even joke about how predictable Lee was. The photos we eventually saw were pretty tame. The irony of it all always got to me. But then it took a turn. I started keeping an eye on Marie's emails, and that's when I found it. She had signed up as a performer on a live streaming platform. That's when I knew what I had to do. I installed some reliable screen recording software and waited. Every night I'd check my phone, hoping she'd go live, though she didn't log on very often. But after a few weeks, she finally did. She was in her shorts and a tank top. She danced and sang, and I watched her anonymously. Here was my best friend, completely exposed to me. This was a side of her I never saw. I got impatient and bought some stupid coins and tipped her to show me, and she obliged. 4 times, I spent a whole $20 getting my best friend to show me and recorded it all. She quit camming a few days later and hasn't been on again since. She apparently wasn't too successful, despite my anonymous help. That or she gave up when me and her started planning to go into the credit card fraud business. No one but me, her and her boyfriend know. We have most of the supplies we need. We're just learning. I can't tell Kay about the credit card thing, and I certainly can't tell anyone about my keeping my eyes on Marie thing, who I might be in love with, by the way. So that's the very abridged version of my confession. Story 9. I'm not sure why I feel the need to talk about this, but it's been weighing on me for a while now, and I feel like I need to get it off my chest. I apologize if this seems scattered. I'm not entirely sure how to express what I'm feeling. I, 25F, found out I had herpes 2 years ago. It was discovered when I took a blood test for STDs, and I learned I had herpes along with 2 other STDs. I treated the other 2, but the herpes is something I'll have for life. Despite all the risks and past experiences, I continued to engage without protection with various people. I know I should have asked for protection, but it often felt like guys didn't care or just didn't want to use them. I realize now that I've been caught in a toxic cycle. It's hard to admit, but I think I've been using these encounters to fill a void in me. I want love, yet I fear rejection or being left behind. I've been unfaithful in the past with my high school boyfriend, and I regretted it deeply when I got caught. I promised myself I wouldn't hurt someone like that again, but I'm scared that my past will always haunt me and that I'll always be someone who hurts others. I feel like I'm a mess, and I struggle to express my emotions. When I felt overwhelmed, anxious, or depressed, I sought out relationships with people I found attractive. I wanted to be used or to numb myself through substances. I guess it was a way to cope with the pain. I realize now how easy it is for someone who's considered okay looking to seek attention and validation from others. But it didn't solve anything. It just kept me stuck in the same cycle. There were times I drove long distances just for a brief encounter, or I hooked up with people when I wasn't even sure I wanted to anymore. Sometimes I'd smoke heavily just to feel nothing. I know I've been trying to escape something, but I'm not sure what or how to fix it. I just wanted to get this off my chest. I don't expect advice, but any thoughts or perspectives would be appreciated. I feel lost and unsure, but I'm trying to work through this. After my second partner, I started making choices that led me to sleep with people, even some from work. When I got tested for STDs, I was seeing a guy from work, and I found out I had gonorrhea. I immediately told him to get checked, and also shared that I had herpes. I was deeply ashamed and distraught, so I apologized and ended things with him, even though he wanted to try and make it work. After that, I felt embarrassed about having herpes. I tried to stop sleeping around, but it felt like men kept reaching out to me. The only person I felt comfortable talking to about it was a coworker who turned out to be a good person. He also had herpes, and I had known about his status before I found out about mine. We would talk and relieve stress together, and he reassured me not to fear what we both had. He also told me that I didn't need to disclose my status to anyone unless I had an outbreak. Even my mom said the same thing after I cried to her and a close friend about my fear of being rejected because of my condition. I know people should disclose their STDs, and I understand that. But the truth is, I've been too scared and too much of a coward to do it. I've avoided talking about it because I've always felt ashamed. I've had hookups and one-night stands, and I've even had a couple of friends with benefits who wanted something more. But I'd always push them away because I thought no one would want me once they knew about my past or my health issues. Plus, I've constantly carried the guilt of possibly passing on herpes to someone else, which hurts every time I think about it. But I just keep moving on quickly. Now I'm in a situation where I was seeing two coworkers. One of them just wanted a friends with benefits relationship, even though I had expressed wanting something more. I didn't disclose my status to him. Eventually, I broke it off because doing it with him was only making me feel lonelier and more sad. I just want to be loved and to commit to someone, but I'm terrified of being honest about my past. I really care about the other coworker. At first, I didn't think they were interested in me or that I felt anything for them. Our relationship started off platonic, just talking and playing games, but feelings grew. When someone I like shows interest, I can't help but give in. I guess it's easier for me to open my body than to open my heart. So, I ended things with him, even though he was willing to date. He thinks I never cared and that I just wanted to use him, but that's not it at all. The truth is, I'm terrified that I might have already given him HSV, or that I will. He's younger, and I fear his reaction if he found out about my high body count and my condition. I'd rather he have the opportunity to move on and experience things with someone else. I know I could have avoided all of this by not engaging with him, by being open about my condition, or at the very least, using protection. I asked to be transferred to a different work area to make it easier for him, and I begged him not to contact me. I know I can move on, but it still brings tears to my eyes. It hurts that I can't fully trust anyone, or that no one could still love me once I tell them everything. I guess I'm left wondering, can someone as flawed as I am become a better person? Could I ever be seen as lovable or find a partner who accepts me for who I am? Should I tell the coworker I care about what's going on? What if he tells others? I really do want help, even if that means seeing a therapist to deal with the trauma and break free from using physical relations as a coping mechanism. A lot of what I'm feeling seems to align with borderline personality disorder, and I want to understand myself better. I have no one to talk to about this. I even cut off my girlfriend because I was scared I might be toxic and didn't want to burden her with my issues. I felt like I didn't deserve her. As for male friends, they've always just wanted to use me, so I don't really rely on them. I just want some advice or perspective, anything to help me understand myself better. Story 10. I was in a friend with benefits kind of relationship with our maid. I've been carrying this story for a long time and I think it's time to finally get it off my chest. I'm not looking for advice. Everything that needed to be handled has already been resolved. I just need to write this out, and Reddit feels like the safest place to do it anonymously. A few things first. I'm not from the US. I live somewhere in Asia. 2. I don't need feedback or judgment. I just need a space to share. 3. English isn't my first language, so I hope I can express this clearly. So here it goes. About 12 years ago, when I was 19 and in college, I found myself in a complicated, situationship-like dynamic with one of the maids working in our household. She was in her early 20s at the time. It wasn't just a casual thing. It became emotionally messy very quickly, especially considering the context we were both in. My family ran a business, and during that period we had 3 live-in maids, all women, and 2 of them were sisters. After some time, the younger sister went to work for one of my aunts, leaving the other 2 with us. Even before I started college, I had witnessed something that has stayed with me for a long time. I accidentally walked in on my father, who was in his early 60s at the time, in an inappropriate and seemingly non-consensual situation with the older sister. It happened in our bathroom. The moment I opened the door, they separated quickly. She fled the room, visibly shaken. My father looked at me and immediately signaled for me not to say anything to my mom, warning that it would destroy our family. Unfortunately, this wasn't the first time my father had crossed the line. He had been cheating on my mother for years. He had a long-term affair with another woman who became pregnant 3 times between 2001 and the late 2000s. He provided support, but that woman eventually moved abroad, married someone else, and started a new life in Australia. As for the maid, after that incident, she eventually left our home and found work elsewhere. I remained silent, partly because I was still a teenager and felt powerless to speak up, especially with how messy and fragile things already were at home. When I started college, I didn't move out. I chose to commute instead, even though it took about 1 to 1.5 hours each way. One day, as I was getting ready to leave, I was looking for my dad to drive me to the nearest train station. I went downstairs and unexpectedly walked in on him again, this time with the last remaining maid. They were on the piano bench, and she had been folding clothes when things escalated into another makeout session. I guess my footsteps were too quiet for them to notice. Even though I was coming down wooden stairs, they were clearly startled when they saw me. The maid gasped and said my name, shocked, while my dad brushed it off and told her to just get back to work. I told him I needed a ride to the station, and we left. During the drive, he once again told me to keep everything to myself. I didn't say anything. I just sat there quietly. At that age, I didn't really have the courage to speak up or challenge my parents. Culturally, that kind of confrontation wasn't something you did. You speak out, you get the belt, the broom, the hanger, the whole package. This all happened before anything started between me and the maid later on. In April 2009, I was looking for a specific cable for my iPod video. Yes, this was quite a while ago, and I overheard the maid say that she had it. This led to a small disagreement, where I asked her to give it back, and she explained that she had left it in her room because she had found it in my laundry. As the day went on, and I still hadn't gotten the cable, I went to her room and insisted that I wouldn't leave until she returned it. At the time, I had just come out of the shower, so I was only in my briefs and a towel. I ended up going up to the rooftop, where her foldable mattress was, and stayed there trying to get the cable back. She told me she was going to sleep on the mattress there, but she still had the cable beside her. I'm not sure what came over me, but I ended up sitting down on the mattress beside her. At that point, some curiosity got the better of me, and I started touching her, though she kept her legs closed. After a few moments, I realized what I was doing, grabbed the cable, and left. We never spoke about it, and no one else ever found out. I never kissed her, though I did tell myself it was because I was saving that for someone special. The truth was, I avoided it because the memory of catching my dad and the maid in a compromising situation earlier made me uncomfortable. In September of that year, I started to get a strange feeling like maybe she was giving me some kind of hint. So that evening, I went to her room again, but she wasn't there. She was watching TV downstairs. However, when she saw my shadow heading toward her room, she followed me and asked what I was doing in there. I told her I needed to talk to her, but I also wanted to stay a little longer as I felt like something might happen. We chatted for a while, and I picked up her phone to play a game she had been using, all while we were lying on the bed together. Eventually, I confessed to what had happened between us on the rooftop back in April. She seemed a bit shocked and made sounds of disbelief, but when I told her I wanted to do those things again, she was hesitant. She was concerned that we might get caught, especially by my dad. I said it won't happen, so we proceeded to do it. This started the situationship. The next time an opportunity came up, she seemed hesitant again, but I told her I had already prepared, bringing what we would need. I mentioned I would come to her room that night, and she responded with that same sly reaction she used when we were hinting at what might happen. That night we eventually crossed that line and did it. She mentioned feeling sore afterward. The following morning she complained that her mattress was stained, blaming me. At that point, I assumed that this might have been her first experience. We continued seeing each other in secret, but it was important for us to be cautious and not get caught. She often voiced concerns, saying that we might get caught, especially by my dad, or that the mattress was uncomfortable. And sometimes she said she didn't want to continue. But I kept pushing, and she would give in each time, so I thought everything was consensual. There was another incident around my birthday in 2011 when I was taking a shower, and she was tidying my room. Early on, when we became intimate, I would sometimes remove my towel while she was in my room. During one of these moments, she mentioned that she thought my body was small since I wasn't particularly excited at the time. This led to a bit of tension between us, and things quickly became more physical until we started groping each other. Suddenly, we heard footsteps from the stairs, so we stopped immediately. I quickly started putting on my clothes while she continued tidying my room. It turned out to be my dad, but he didn't say anything to me about it, so we assumed we were in the clear. However, the moment had already been ruined, and I had a birthday party downstairs because I was turning 22, so we didn't continue. The last time we were intimate was in February 2012, shortly after Valentine's Day. This time, something felt different. She seemed off, and we ended up finishing things more quickly than usual. I always made sure to properly dispose of the condoms we used, tying them off to prevent any issues. She always insisted on throwing them away, which became a habit we followed each time. I didn't think much of it, as it felt like a routine for us. In April, her sister came to visit us with the news that their grandfather had passed away and that they needed to return to their province for the funeral. We agreed to it. I was hoping for one last chance to be with her before she left, but her sister stayed with her that night. That evening, she kept saying goodbye, and I jokingly said she'd better come back, but she never returned. Months passed, and we didn't hear from her until her sister came back with 2 men to collect her belongings. I assumed that was the end of our situationship. A few years later, the guilt seemed to weigh heavily on my dad. He confessed to my mom and sister that he had gotten the maid pregnant and had asked her to leave to keep the pregnancy a secret. My mom and sister were devastated, and it caused a huge disruption in our household. My sister later shared the confession with me, and while I tried to remain calm, I felt overwhelmed and confused. That was, I guess, the closure I had been seeking. During this time, my dad spent his Sundays at home, while the maid went out for part of the day. I figured the situation likely occurred when no one was around, either while we were out working or during the quiet hours at home. In November of that year, she gave birth to a baby boy back in her province. After my dad's confession, things settled down and life returned to some normalcy. My parents had a difficult conversation, and my mom sought support from her side of the family. My dad promised he wouldn't repeat his actions, and over time things slowly healed. Our former maid occasionally reached out to me on Facebook, but I blocked her before my dad's confession. I later learned she had been contacting my mom for child support, believing the business was entirely my dad's. However, by this time the business had been transferred to me and my siblings, so my dad had no money to offer. Eventually, communication stopped, but after some time, I unblocked her on Facebook. I didn't engage with her though, as we never truly connected on the platform. She eventually found a new partner, a man from France, and moved on with her life, bringing her child along. As for me, I've tried to move forward, and my dad, now in his 70s, has become more religious, serving at a local church as a form of repentance. He continues to pay child support for the 3 from his affairs, but for the sake of family peace, we've chosen to let it be. A few months after my dad's confession, I found myself casually thinking about the timing of everything. I was eating one day when it occurred to me that I might have been intimate with her around the time of the baby's conception. I started to wonder if perhaps something had gone wrong with the condom we used, or if there had been some other circumstance where she might have intentionally gotten pregnant, but then blamed it on my dad. While it's just a thought, my dad adamantly insisted that he had been intimate with her and had done so unprotected. This realization has been on my mind, and I'm not sure if I have a half-brother or a son out there whom I'll never know. It's not something I actively want to pursue, but the uncertainty is unsettling. This whole situation has been a roller coaster of emotions, and honestly, I don't know why I'm sharing it now, but I just needed to get it off my chest anonymously. I'm not seeking advice. I simply wanted to share my experience. I'd appreciate any perspective or comments, but please be kind. This is a part of my past that has deeply affected me. I haven't shared this with anyone, and maybe hearing from others might give me some new insights. Thank you for taking the time to read this. P.S. Over the years, I've done a lot of self-reflection and have wondered if I might have an undiagnosed inferiority complex, which could explain some of my past actions and preferences. I'm not sure, but I might be overthinking it. Apologies for the long post. I tend to over-explain things. Story 11. I hooked up with my friend on graduation night. While I am currently in a relationship with one of her friends, graduation night actually fell on a Sunday, right at the beginning of the week. Me and my friends ended up at this house party on the outskirts of town, just off the interstate. It wasn't exactly an ideal spot, but for Arkansas, it was pretty much as good as it gets. We rode there in a friend's car. Thankfully, they were the designated driver. My other friend and I, though, were fully committed to getting wrecked. I was going back and forth between rum, vodka, brandy, margarita mix, and Jaeger bombs. At some point, more people rolled in with lean, and of course I took some. We had a joint going around too, and I hit it a bunch, definitely more than I should have considering how gone I already was. From here, things get a little blurry. I was a full-on crossfade cocktail at this point. I do remember sitting out back with my female friend. The house was built into a rocky hillside, and we were perched on a big rock, just talking with someone. Mid-conversation, for whatever reason, thought it'd be a great idea to slide my hand into her pants. She didn't miss a beat, started rubbing me through mine. We were making out, touching each other, totally forgetting there was still someone sitting in front of us. They just stopped talking mid-sentence, probably trying to process what was even happening. Some of the details blur together, but I snap back into awareness to find myself holding her on that same rock. We're both shirtless, and I suddenly notice a small audience gathered on the deck, watching us. That moment of clarity hits us both hard. Common sense finally cuts through the haze. The reality sinks in. I'd been seeing her friend, a year younger than us, who wasn't around for the graduation weekend. If we kept going, it wouldn't just be a drunken mistake. It would be betraying someone we both cared about. And sober me, I actually saw a future with her. So we gathered ourselves, put our clothes back on, and went back inside without saying much. A couple of hours later, the party had mellowed out. The host pulled out a couch for people to crash on. Me and my friend, still riding the tail end of our buzz, ended up there curled up together, wrapped in a drunken embrace, as the night wound down. She was holding on to me, kissing me, and I was kissing her back. The lights were off, the house was quiet, and nearly everyone else had already passed out. One thing led to another, and soon we were bare on that pull-out couch, caught up in the moment, unfiltered, intense. But even though I was charged, something in me just couldn't follow through. Looking back, it was probably for the best. Neither of us had protection. Still, we continued for almost half an hour, and she tried everything, BJHJ, but my drunk body just wasn't cooperating. Eventually, I just passed out, still bare and out cold. The next morning, I woke up and checked my phone. There it was, a message from the girl I'd actually been seeing. "Hey, I like you. Have fun tonight." And just like that, the pit hit my stomach. Guilt, regret. I knew I'd crossed a line, and now there was something I'd have to carry. A secret that, if exposed, could blow up everything with her and within our friend group. Later, I talked it over with my friend, and we both agreed it was a mistake. We weren't thinking straight, and that night didn't mean anything real. We put it behind us. And tonight, I asked the girl I'd been seeing to be my girlfriend, and she said yes. Story 12. I banged a married guy friend of mine. We all ended up pretty drunk that night, him especially. He was loud, sloppy, and clearly way past his limit. When we got back to the barracks, I found myself sitting next to him in the back seat. Out of nowhere, he started kissing me. Then he told me to kiss him back. I leaned in and quietly said, I couldn't, not with him being married. He eventually backed off, and nothing else was said about it. I brushed it off, figuring he was wasted, and people do dumb things when they're that far gone. After that, we actually became friends. We'd talk whenever we ran into each other, and started going out on weekends as part of the same crowd. I even saw him out once with a girl he met at some volunteer event. But what stood out the most was that after that first night, he never wore his wedding ring when we went to bars. One night I wasn't out drinking, but I was on duty when he and his friend came stumbling back from the bar. I help him with the smoke pit while he's clinging all over me. He tries to get me to show him naughty pictures, which I declined. At one point he pulls me off to the side, tells me how sexy I am and how much he wants to bang me. He starts kissing me and pulling me closer, telling me how much he wants me and has for a while. I remind him again that he's married. He would regret it in the morning and that he would never do this stuff if he was sober, which of course he refuted. He then tells me he's going to make out with me at some point that night. Stupidly, I told him he should head to bed and walked him up to his room. When we got there, he asked me to come in, and I did. He grabbed my face and kissed me, and for a moment, we were making out. But I pulled away pretty quickly, saying I had to get back to work. I saw him a few more times that night, but by then he was completely out of it, way too far gone from drinking to really be present. The next day, everything felt surprisingly normal. We joked around about how drunk he'd been, and he kept saying he'd blacked out and couldn't remember anything after the bar. Honestly, I was relieved. It made it easier to pretend like nothing had happened. Later, I talked to the friend he'd been drinking with. He mentioned the guy had made out with someone, but I couldn't tell if he knew it was me. That uncertainty stuck with me. After that, I made a silent promise to myself. I needed to keep my distance and move on. He's married, and that should have been the line I never even approached. Things had been going well between us. We still talked all the time, just as friends. He was always fun to be around, sweet in a way that sometimes flirted with a line, but I didn't read too much into it. He borrowed my car a few times, picked me up from class. It all felt casual, familiar. Then a couple nights ago, he went out drinking with his friends at the local bar and, as usual, got completely hammered. While I was out at a volunteer event, he called me. Slurring a little, he told me he was going to wait outside my door and started saying things like, "Do you want to bang me?" I laughed it off and teased him, telling him he'd probably be passed out before I even got home. Still, he made me promise to call him when I did. Later that night, I got home pretty late. I made myself a margarita and had a couple of beers. I'm a lightweight, so I caught a buzz quickly. On impulse, I called him, and he answered immediately. He sounded like he'd been asleep, but said he was coming over to drink some more. When he didn't show up right away, I figured he'd fallen back asleep. I was just about to head to another friend's room when I heard him banging on my door. He came in with that sly smile and asked, "So what do you have to drink?" I started pulling out some vodka and tequila, but before I could even pour anything, he stepped in close and started kissing me. I looked up at him and he just said, "Come here," before pulling me into a kiss. So obviously we ended up doing it and took a shower together afterwards. He stuck around for a little while longer, took a few more shots, teased me about the disaster that is my closet, and laughed at my weird taste in books. Then he left. The next day, the two of us, along with a mutual friend, went on a road trip. There was a slight tension in the air, awkward, but not unbearable. Still, we didn't mention what had happened the night before. In fact, we didn't bring up the evening at all. That night, everyone made plans to go out to the bars. I didn't get invited. I kind of expected it, but it still stung. I have no idea if anyone else knows what happened. Maybe it's still just between the two of us. What's eating me up is the guilt. I'm so angry at myself for choosing to disrespect something as sacred as a marriage. Even if it clearly doesn't mean much to him, it should mean something. I never thought I'd let myself become that person, the other woman. I never wanted to betray my own values or lose respect for myself like this. And now, I feel like I have. I feel sick with regret. I used to believe I had a moral compass, but I ignored it. I went against everything I thought I stood for, and now I don't know how to forgive myself for that. It's like there's this weight in my chest, and I don't know how to carry it. I don't know how to just move on and pretend like nothing happened, because something did, and I don't know what to do with that. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, Subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.